Good evening and welcome to the Lithgow City Council August the 22nd Council meeting. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respect to both elders past, present and emerging. Declaration of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. I note there are a number of people in the public gallery for this evening's meeting. We are today a council that conducts its meetings and comes to policy positions in a constructive, effective and orderly way. We are pleased to display this to the public when they attend meetings or view them on the video broadcast. Those of you who have not made arrangements to address council tonight, your attendance is limited to viewing proceedings outlined in the business paper. I ask for your cooperation and the respect. Thank you. All councillors are here tonight. Declarations of interest. Anybody wishing to declare a declaration of interest? Councillor
I
Purcell?
do. Ms Statham, thank you. In item 11.3.2, a significant interest, I'll be leaving the chambers.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anybody else wishing to declare any more conflicts of interest? Thank you. Commemorations and announcements. On behalf of Lithgow City Council, I wish to express sincere sympathy and condolences to the families who have lost loved ones since our last council meeting. We now go to the public forum. Any person registered to speak during the public forum on matters... Oh yes, right. That's right down in the bottom, I've missed that. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held the 25th of July 2022 and extraordinary meeting of council held the 1st of August 2022. Can I have somebody please confirm the meeting of the 22nd of July?
Happy to move for me.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell.
Happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Thank you. For the 1st of August, please, the extraordinary meeting. Have somebody move those minutes, please.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, please.
Second that, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour say
Ms
aye.
Statham, I have an amendment to the minutes.
Yes, Councillor Leslie.
Actually, I have two, but they are different, so I'll read them separately. The first one is that the minutes of the extraordinary, an amendment to it, that the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 1st of August 2022 record that the rescission motion 7.1 was submitted by councillors Marnie, Coleman and Leslie.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Leslie, would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
Just briefly, I think you'll find a very good example of how this is done by looking up the minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of August, when a rescission motion was moved by councillors Goodsell, Coleman and myself. And that was very, very neatly done, and I think it would be a good copy to do.
Anybody else wishing to speak on this, please? I'll put the motion, I'll put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. I'll put, okay, so Councillor Leslie?
The second one is that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 1st of August 2022 record that the commentary included in the business paper as part of motion, notice of motion 0108 2022 DA 070/22, the geotechnical investigation works Lake Lyell was not written by the councillors who submitted the rescission motion, but by Lithgow Council's General Manager, and does not reflect the views of those councillors.
Can I have a seconder to that? Thank you. Councillor Marnie, you're going to second that? Yes. Councillor Leslie?
this particular notice of rescission motion was for the first time that I'm aware of that the commentary was, the notice of motion itself had the report by the General Manager. Every other rescission motion has always been the report by the councillors who moved it. And then there was a commentary which was written by, presumably, by the General Manager, and it did not reflect the views of the councillors who moved it. It is misleading to the public and anyone who wishes to look at the minutes in the future to understand exactly what happened at the meeting. First of all, we did not have the councillors who moved it. That has now been corrected. But we also have the commentary, which was not reflective of those who actually did it. And it's totally inappropriate and it needs to be corrected. And because we cannot change the agenda, we need to change the minutes to reflect the actual accuracy of what happened at the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Marnie? No. Okay, I'll put the amendment, thank you. All those in favour say aye. That is for all. There'll be a casting vote with that, I guess. Against?
I'd like a division
I'll
on
call a
that.
division on this, thank you. All those in favour of this, thank you. Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Coleman and Councillor Goodsell. Against? Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham. Thank you.
Good.
We now come to public forum. Thank you. Yes. Mr. Rob White, thank you.
Thank you. I'm a little perplexed as to why I'm here for the fourth council meeting in a row speaking on matters relating to DA 070/022 and the pumped hydro. I was of the view that following the voting at the last ordinary meeting and the following extraordinary meeting, that the process was now finalised, done and complete. I was very surprised to read the business papers for tonight's meeting and see that a councillor who had chosen not to speak at the last extraordinary meeting has suddenly decided to raise issues pertaining to comments by those that did bother to make representations. The fact that, and assuming that the process is complete, the issue of Land and Environment Court is now an irrelevant issue. There are a few facts that are conveniently ignored when cherry-picking a single weak argument that was put up at the time and forgetting the arguments that were strong that were also present. I would like to firstly point out to the Council that on the 28th of September 2020, Lithgow Council set a precedent by voting to reject development application 114/19, farm stay accommodation, a development application that was originally recommended for approval by council staff. Some of the reasons given for rejection of that approval included the following. 1. The likely impacts of that development, including environmental impacts on both the natural and built environments, social and economic impacts on the locality being visual, noise, traffic and amenity. Point 2, the suitability of the site for the development and access constraints. Point 4, the public interest. Point 5, The proposal is inconsistent with the Lithgow Local Environmental Plan 2014, that being to minimise the conflict between land uses within this zone and land uses within adjoining zones, and to minimise the environmental and visual impact of development on the rural landscape. The reasons given for the rejection of the Farmstay DA have a sense of déjà vu. They are basically a copy of the items raised by speakers in DA 070/22. It is worth noting that at the time, both Councillors Statham and Goodman voted in favour of this rejection. Regarding the recent development application, 4 councillors that did make the effort to speak at the extraordinary meeting raised valid arguments that could potentially be used in a legal context. Councillor Goodsell pointed out that Energy Australia has already publicly stated a broader plan of what it is intending to pursue should these boreholes prove feasible, thus confirming that the application is not a standalone proposal. In fact, it is part of a significant larger proposed development that should have been included as part of the DA. Councillor Leslie also validly pointed out that this project is a project of state significance that will be dealt with at New South Wales government level and should not have been dealt with at council level in the first place. Along with the precedent reasons given in the historical rejection of the Farmstay DA and the valid arguments offered by Councillors Goodsell, Leslie, Coleman and Mahoney, there would be ample reasons for rejection of DA 07022. So my questions to Councillor Goodwin are: what are the motivations to present these issues after the event when you chose not to raise any issues at the extraordinary meeting of council? Point 2, why have you chosen to cherry pick a single weak argument at the expense of much more numerous strong arguments and other valid issues raised in Lithgow Council's own precedent behaviour and those raised by your councillor peers? Point 3, considering the dire nature of the council's financial situation, which is very topical at the moment, why has it been deemed necessary to waste council staff, time and money pursuing an issue that the council considers finalised and closed? This all makes no sense. Thank you.
Mr. White, would you mind if we have a copy of your... Yes, I have. All right, that's fine. I'll now have Mr. Ross Gurney read out a letter that we have received from Mr. Anthony Craig, who is unable to be here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. This is a response to the proposed rate increase of 25% in the rating review report commissioned by Lithgow Council from Mr. Anthony Craig. I have reviewed the rating report sent to me by Ross Gurney and wish to make the following comments as a ratepayer of 30 years in Lithgow. I have now no doubt that trying to run a multi-million-dollar organisation with a budget over $49 million a year is not without significant challenges. Various individuals and organisations within the Lithgow Council area, with competing demands placing enormous pressure on resources and expenditure of council with revenue limitations. However, the shortfall of $4.718 million is not a one-off issue, and not being able to balance the council budget is a due diligence issue. If I fail to pay my rates to council or balance my household budget, I will be out on the street. Council would have no problems recovering rates owned by selling my property. Inflation is heading to 6%, wages flat, and cost of living increasing, such as petrol and food. A 25% increase in rates would have a significant impact on small businesses trying to get back on their feet during a COVID-19 pandemic, and householders would find the rate increase too much to bear. I suggest the following to move forward: A freeze on all council rate increases for 12 months, maintain at 2021 levels. Number 2, a freeze on council employment for 12 months. Number 3, a productivity saving on all council departments to break even for 22-23 fiscal year. Point 4, senior managers of council renewal of employment contracts should be placed on hold until out of control expenditure resolved. 5, councillors should explain their actions, the failure to ensure a balanced budget and use of ratepayers' money over years. And 6, local government minister should explain lack of oversight of Lithgow Council. I request this letter be read out at the public forum as I am an essential worker, registered nurse and unable to attend due to maintaining a service to the community. Posted to social media of Lithgow and to encourage ratepayers to voice their concerns to council. And a detailed response has been sent to Mr Craig and his letter is included as a submission on the Our Place, Our Future options.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. That completes now, Mr Ray Smith, thank you. Our last person tonight for public forum, thank you.
I'd like to address to Council regarding new projects and economy prospects for the area. Noted in the Lithgow Mercury on the 29th of April 22, Councillor Statham stated that the area would have to have a circular economy and become a sustainable energy precinct. We know that Lithgow area was not designated in a renewable energy zone. So we deduce that the new projects do not list as renewable, i.e. waste burning and pumped hydro, which have been or will be proposed for the area. Noted again in the same press release was overall job numbers across various projects. At least 1,500 construction jobs and close to 800 long-term jobs. Quote Councillor Goodwin, jobs is what the community needs. And the ratepayers all agree, which may be in time to assist the present financial crisis that exists and alleviate these massive rate increases that are impending. But to date, we only see minimal numbers of long-term jobs on offer. At a meeting at Wang Recreational Club last December, where Energy Australian representatives were in attendance, they reluctantly admitted that for the proposed hydro, there would be only 15 full-time ongoing long-term jobs. Noted in the Lithgow Mercury on the 12th of 8th, 22, the Wang battery gets approval resulting in 100 construction jobs and 5 ongoing operational jobs. Thus the total number of long-term jobs ongoing, hydro 15, battery 5, waste burning at this point nil, total of 20, 780 short of the 800 mentioned by Councillor Statham. We as a concerned community members ask our council, state and federally elected members to be accountable and transparent on all information regarding these projects, as much of these projects are not stacking up. What eventually will result, an area which is supposedly leaning towards becoming a tourist area, lose its greatest asset and create a long-term eyesore, and providing only a handful of jobs, possibly at the demise of the jobs that are already employed at the lake at present. Noted in the Mercury, 19th of the 8th, 22, mention of the access road for geotechnical drilling via Maringaroo Fields is ruffling feathers. I implore these residents and all community members to take more active interest in these projects and stay ahead of the game and decide what is best in their best interest for their needs. And note, I will admit it was mentioned in the paper that there was no mention in the approval about Girraween being used, but it actually was. Girraween, Sir Thomas Mitchell Drive, Lake Lyell water access were all mentioned in the DA for the boreholes, which was accepted by Council. Summary.
Could I please have somebody?
I'll move that way, Mayor Statham.
Thanks, thank you, councillor Coleman. Have a seconder, please. Thank you, councillor Marnie. All those in favour say aye. Just let me see the hands for that, please. Thank you. Continue, Mr Smith, thank you.
All concerned community members want the Lithgow area to thrive with more long-term jobs leading to a stronger local economy. But some of these projects are not going to provide this, nor are they renewable, nor is the area classified as a renewable energy zone. The hydro may be a good project in some areas, but this is the wrong location and will not be the answer for Lithgow's economic woes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Smith. Before we continue on now, I'd like the General Manager just to have a remark about Mr Smith's statements tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Mr Smith is right. He alludes to how difficult it is to diversify an economy, and certainly we recognise that not all forms of new energy generate jobs, direct jobs in their own right. However, there are indirect jobs. They're often called multiplier jobs in terms of the many support industries that hang off those, but also in recognition of that fact. That's the reason why with that battery at Wallerawang, the council negotiated a $2 million voluntary planning contribution, and a good portion of that will go towards economic diversification. So by using the planning system and the planning contribution framework, we can actually generate the intellectual and resource capacity to build jobs. So yes, a battery may employ just 5 people going forward, or perhaps even less. But what it can do is provide bulk power to local industry, and what the contributions can do is help to create an economic diversification fund. The Mayor and I also had the opportunity recently to attend an announcement about a grant funding for Talus, which is bringing tens of jobs. I'm sorry, the numbers elude me at the moment. I think I'd be close to the mark if I said 50 jobs, but I stand corrected. And we also attended Lightcorp, which is a real example of innovation and small industry startups in this city that are doing really Australia first technology. And with government support, I think they're growing an additional 20 jobs soon. But yes, they're small numbers, and we need to create big numbers. And Mr Smith's right, that's not easy. It's why this year Council is investing all of its economic development activity in what we're calling the LEAP project, which is really confirming and studying what are the most important things that we need to do first, second, third and fourth over the 7 to 10 years that it will take to grow and diversify the local economy.
Thank you, Mr Butler. We now move on to notices of motion. 9.1, Notice of Motion, Councillor Stephen Leslie, Code of Meeting Practice. Have somebody move that, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. This is a fairly simple motion.
Could I have a seconder, thank you? Councillor Goodsell? Yes, Councillor Leslie.
Thank you. This is a fairly simple motion designed to ensure what happened at the extraordinary council meeting doesn't happen again. I note that there's no commentary in the notice of motion, which is pleasing because I didn't actually write one. For clarification, the current Code of Meeting Practice is the first paragraph, and the change is the inclusion of the second paragraph, nicely written in a larger font. At the extraordinary, I move this because I believe council agendas and minutes should be an accurate reporting of business being transacted at council meetings. At the extraordinary council meeting held on the 1st of August 2022, 3 councillors submitted a rescission motion for debate. The 3 councillors were Councillor Marnie, Councillor Coleman and myself, Councillor Leslie. But this is, but fortunately now will be, was not recorded in the council agenda available at the meeting and was not on the council website or in the minutes as printed. This is unprecedented. Let me read the heading. Notice of rescission. 0108-2022 DA 070/22 Geotechnical Investigation Works Lake Lyell report by the General Manager. For people interested in how this geotechnical investigation came about and looking at official council records, they will believe that the General Manager was bringing down this rescission motion. It's also unprecedented, and I said so at the extraordinary council meeting, that the General Manager wrote a page and a half of commentary. The commentary was not written by the movers of the rescission motion. It was highly prejudicial to the intent of the motion. So I move the motion to make sure this action doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Goodsell?
Just reflecting on the management comment there that says that the proposed amendment will be helpful, so I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Any other debate on this? Right of reply, Councillor Leslie?
Thank you. At the extraordinary meeting, we heard a lot about respect, and if you read the minutes, you'll see that written in note points of order many times. And the General Manager had an opportunity in his management comment to acknowledge the omission of the names of the movers of the rescission motion, acknowledge that that was disrespectful, but he chose not to. This motion is to ensure that no one else is so disrespected.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? So that's my vote again. This is a casting vote. All those in favour say aye. Against? Against is Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham.
Just for the record, you're calling a rescission motion, are you? You're calling a division, are you?
No, I'm just going to ask now for the people to put their hands up, please, that voted for the motion.
Just for the record, I'll call a division on the matter.
I will as well. So thank you, Councillor Leslie. All those, please, that voted for the motion, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Goodsell. I'll call the division, thank you. All those in favour against the motion? Councillor Goodwin, Bryce, O'Connor, McGee and Statham. For the motion? Yeah, this is for the division. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Goodsell. Thank you. Item 10 tonight, 10.1, is a question with notice. Councillor Darryl Goodwin, Land and Environment Court, boreholes. Councillors, please note that this is a question with notice. This affords a councillor to ask a question of the General Manager about the operations of council. Councillor Goodwin's question has been answered in the report. I will ask Councillor Goodwin to now read out his questions. Mr McGrath will then read the management response to those questions. There is no provision for debate about a question with notice. The minutes will record the questions and answers were read out.
Is it possible for me to move a procedural motion that the item be open to debate?
No, it's not what it is. A question with notice, is it? I'm happy to accept that, Councillor Marnie.
Thank you, Ms. Stephen. I'll move that way.
Okay, could I have a second? Thank you.
Happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. All those in favour say aye. Five and against, thank you. Councillor Marnie, would you like to start that debate? Thank you.
Well, no, we'll just move the item. We need Councillor Goodwin. Just to the questions.
Yes, Councillor Goodwin, if you'd like to speak to your question now, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Coleman stated that we could take this to the Land and Environment Court and we didn't have to defend ourselves at the extraordinary meeting. That's why I asked these questions. I would have thought that every councillor would want to be accurate in their comments. She knew her comments were inaccurate, yet she naively stated this in a council meeting. So my questions are, as was stated in the extraordinary meeting on Monday the 1st of August, that if Energy Australia DA for boreholes were not approved by council and subsequently ended up in the Land and Environment Court, council would not have to defend their decision. I have queries regarding this. Is this statement that council would not have to defend their decision at the Land and Environment Court correct? If this statement is incorrect, would council be liable for their own legal fees, and does council have an approximate idea of how much it will cost? If council chose not to defend the decision, would they be liable for the legal costs for Energy Australia? If council decided not to approve the DA and choose to defend the decision at the Land and Environment Court, given the council officer's recommendation that the DA be approved, what are the chances of Lithgow Council being successful? And if Lithgow Council lost at the Land and Environment Court, would they be liable for Energy Australia's legal costs? They were my questions that I put to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. You're right, Michael? Yes. Mr McGrath now will answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Legal advice has not been sought on these questions tonight, partly because that would incur a cost of approximately $600 to $700. However, the council officer's response to the above questions set out in the business paper below. Number one, council must provide reasons for refusal of a DA and should be prepared to defend reasons for refusal. The same is the case for an approval of a DA. Number two, council would be liable for legal, professional services and staff costs involved in coordinating affidavits and consultants. Solicitors' fees range from approximately $350 an hour to $500 per hour, depending on the type of work. If an experienced barrister is required, costs can be thousands of dollars per day. If professional advice or opinions are required, the council would be required to pay consultant engineers and or planners for this advice. If the matter only went as far as conciliation, this would be less expensive. Staff would need to negotiate the outcome. Number three, possibly an applicant could apply for costs thrown away, and 60 to 70% of such costs might have to be paid by the council. When a development has been assessed in a mature and professional manner, it can be difficult to source expert professional advice to contradict the development assessment. If the matter went to court, the fact that the development was assessed and recommended for approval would be noted by the court. Ultimately, though, the court, like council, is compelled to determine the DA based purely on the statutory requirements, relevant heads of consideration and a balanced assessment of the merits. Number five, provided there was a legal and well-founded basis for the council's decision and the decision was related specifically to the DA, the development proposed within that DA, and not miscellaneous, obtruse or other subsequent considerations, it would most likely be the case that each party would bear their own costs. The Council's Code of Conduct, section 3.13 and 3.14, details the standards of land use planning, development assessment and other regulatory functions. 3.13 says you must ensure that land use planning, development assessment and other regulatory decisions are properly made and that all parties are dealt with fairly. You must avoid any occasion for suspicion or improper conduct in the exercise of land use planning, development assessment and other regulatory functions. 3.14.
Point of order. Surely 3.13 and 3.14 are not answering the questions that were asked by Councillor Goodwin.
Mr McGrath?
These items are just in here for information.
Mr McGrath, are you answering the questions related to Councillor Goodwin's question? Are you answering those questions? You are, I believe.
I'm responding to questions 1 to 5.
So Mr McGrath has assured me he's responding to questions 1 to 5. Councillor Leslie, I cannot accept that point of order. Councillor Goodwin, are you happy with Mr McGrath's? Thank you. Continue, please, Mr McGrath.
3.14 of Council's Code of Conduct states, in exercising land use planning, development assessment and other regulatory functions, you must ensure that no action, statement or communication between yourself and others conveys any suggestion of willingness to improperly provide concessions or preferential or unduly unfavourable treatment.
Thank you, Mr McGrath.
Madam Mayor, I have a question, if I may. Could I ask Mr McGrath to just explain to me which questions from 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 he related the Code of Conduct matters to?
Mr McGrath.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Those two items were in there because they relate to land use planning, development assessment and other regulatory functions.
Yes, but I can't see that question in 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5.
Mr General Manager.
Through you, Mayor. Those comments go to the questions as well. The questions go to the basis and the statutory framework within which councils and council laws need to operate under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act when dealing with an application. And such is that framework so defined that it's repeated again in the Code of Conduct, and I believe that that goes to answering the questions and the intent of the questions.
So for clarity, they were just extra additions to the questions.
Councillor Goodwin, are you satisfied with the report that has been handed down this evening?
Yeah, very satisfied, thank you.
Can I have a show of hands, please, for everyone that is...
I'd like to ask a question. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Marnie.
Through yourself, Mayor, can I just clarify in point 1 in the response? And this is only a relatively minor thing, but I just wanted to clarify. Council must provide reasons for refusal of a DA and should or must be prepared to defend themselves.
That would be must.
Okay, thank you. The second point I want to address not directly goes to Councillor Goodwin's bringing the question with notice, and however, I want to ask a couple of questions. I found some of the language in the report. I just want to clarify with the staff what's implied in this. Now, when a development has been assessed in a mature and professional manner, I'm just interested in what the alternate that a council might undertake that assessment. Is it an immature and unprofessional assessment? I'm not quite sure that I find this style of language useful in a report like this. I'm noting that point 4, and I stood here in front when I was elected as a council on the affirmation of a councillor. I understand that, I read that every month. I'm somewhat inclined to understand where Councillor Leslie has come from, that I don't feel I need those points restated to me. I understand very clearly that my decisions have to be dealt with fairly, and I must avoid any suspicion of improper conduct, and so on. I note also, and I've raised this issue before on the ordinary meeting of Council 2nd of March 2022, on 11.2.2.5 relating to the waste incinerator, where proponents or when the report was addressing the potential impacts of the waste incinerator.
Point of order, Mayor Statham. What is he talking
please
about?
keep on topic, Councillor Marnie. We're not here to discuss that this evening. You know the topic. Please stay on topic.
I'm talking to the language. I'm happy to have this conversation with the community in another forum, if this is the inappropriate forum to do it.
Would you like to continue, Councillor
Yes.
Marnie?
I've only got a couple of minutes to go. It referenced research and evidence, and when it spoke to those who are opposed, it characterised them as being philosophically opposed. I think when these reports come to council, what the councillors are looking for is evidence, facts, and a way to guide their decision in a good governance process. I am seeing this. I've read this also in the when I read the response to the energy to waste zone. I'm seeing similar styles of language.
Excuse me, keep on topic, Councillor Marnie. You've got a minute left. Thank you.
Is the language used in the report. So I would certainly like to see that addressed in future reports. I think I'm very clear. I'm someone who's very supportive of staff. I don't try to wrap any criticism in a clever set of words. I'll be very honest and direct about my concerns, and that's a concern for me. So that's all I'd like to say on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Statham. Considering that I was mentioned in Councillor Goodwin's commentary, I'd like to come down to the point that, yes, I understand the Council's officer's response to the above fellow questions following. However, also a management comment, legal advice has not been sought on these questions because that would incur a cost of approximately $600 to $700, and I'm assuming that maybe the advice would be slightly different. However, it still states very clearly that legal advice wasn't sought, and you don't know what actually happens when legal advice is sought and matters go to court.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Mr McGrath, would you like to speak to? No. Is there anybody else wishing to debate this? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor
Mr
Statham.
Leslie?
I think there's a major misunderstanding about how a rescission motion would proceed if it was carried against the...
Please keep on topic. This is not a rescission motion.
We're dealing with the rescission motion that was... These questions arise from the rescission motion that was moved at the meeting at the 1st of October. And there were questions that have come as a result of statements that were made at that meeting about the rescission motion. It's to the heart of the questions that were raised. But let me put it another way then. We heard from Mr. White that the councillors, including Councillor Goodwin and yourself and myself and Councillor Coleman, debated a matter of the farm stay in the Megalong Valley.
Councillor Good, Councillor, please keep on topic. Thank you.
No, I don't think I'll bother anymore. Thank you very much.
Anybody else wishing? We've got nothing. Megalong Valley at all. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I'd like to say that I agree with Councillor Goodwin. The answer does make sense. It explains, it answers the questions, and it explains, and everyone knows, no one wins in court. And you don't be frivolous with the court system. You don't just send a case to court because you want to upset someone or slow something down. It's a good answer, and I think the staff's done very well.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Bryce, thank you.
I found these questions useful as we move forward as new councillors to actually know what we're up to when we do knock back a DA and how it would proceed in courts.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak on this? Councillor Goodwin, would you like to say something?
Oh, I certainly knew that that taking this to the Land and Environment Court would cost the community lots of money. And statements said in open council by councillor needed to be corrected, and that's why I asked these questions, to get the correct response.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. We'll go on to now staff reports. 11.1 General Manager's Report. For this item, councillors, I'm seeking a motion which deals with the proposed motions that we take to the conference.
I'd like to move something, Mayor Statham.
I'm just reading this out. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Also, Council must decide how many delegates it takes to the conference. In light of Council's constrained capacity, I encourage that we limit the participation this year. I will attend. I have refused to attend 2 other conferences because of excessive money being wasted. So, councillors, would somebody like to advance a motion that deals with these 2 considerations as written in the commentary? Thank you.
I would like to move, Mayor Statham.
Yes, Councillor Coleman.
As per common practice, I move that the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and another councillor attends Local Government New South Wales Annual State Conference. I also move that the full notice and motions be taken to Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference.
Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. It states in the report that there are 3 voting delegates for the conference and 3 voting delegates for the board election. It has been common practice that the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and another councillor attends Local Government New South Wales Annual State Conference. I understand that yourself would like to go, and I understand generally you go for the one day. Is that right, Mayor Statham, or are you going for the full conference?
The full conference. This is the New South Wales Government. This is the main conference of the year.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. I think this conference is absolutely crucial that we have delegates on the ground, we have delegates there that have networks, and that we have delegates there that can make representation to those who they think would do the best job. We've got a state election looming, and
On point, it's got nothing to do with the election. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's just regarding what was in the report, so I'll stick to the report. I'll come back to the report then, and I'll just state what it states in the report. Natural disasters are occurring more frequently than ever before, states that in the report, and I feel like local government is in a constant state of emergency response. And I agree that the New South Wales Government should be fully funding RFS maintenance and repair costs. That's in the report. And that cost shifting practices onto local government is not acceptable, which is also stated in the report. So, as I said before, it doesn't matter what happens next March. We need to make sure that we are ahead of the game, discussing with other delegates in regards to natural disasters, local government in constant state of emergency response, which is in the report, also calling upon the New South Wales Government to fully fund the RFS maintenance and repair costs, which is in the report. And also in the report it states that Council does not have capacity to absorb these unplanned costs. And as I've already stated, cost shifting onto local government. We also need to have a plan and reality for climate change, which is also in the report. So I'm just confirming what's in the report, and it's very important that we are there representing Lithgow in regards to these matters.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Goodsell.
I just have a few questions. So is it definite that if we put these 4 motions forward, they will be debated on, they'll be accepted and they will be successful? Sorry, a couple of questions.
Oh, it depends on how the proceedings occur at the conference, the pace with which they move through the motions. Typically, on occasions, they'll get through all of the motions. Sometimes they won't, and therefore those are brought back into New South Wales LGA to deal with them subsequently. But they need to be debated on the floor. There's no guarantees of them prevailing. What you often find is that our motions will align, and I think these topic areas will, with what others are calling for, because they speak to the challenges facing rural and regional councils. So I think we'll have good support and others advancing similar motions. But whether they get dealt with during the conference, maybe not.
I've still got another question, Ms.
I'd like to speak as a second.
Councillor Marnie should have spoken in front of you, Councillor.
Oh, sorry.
I apologise for that. Councillor Marnie.
Just briefly, I support the statement from Councillor Coleman. I think it's very appropriate, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, and I'd also encourage an additional councillor to attend. There's significant issues, as the Mayor's rightly stated, in regard to the importance of attending state conference. Can I thank the staff, and in regard to the motions, I think they're right to the heart of the challenges facing local government at the moment, and very much to the heart of what's facing small regional local government. A proactive asset management approach and a reactive rather than reactive end of the life cycle. We all know where that's taking us. Also need to talk about the fact that rural councils are managing large areas of link roads linking rural communities. Because it passes through their LGA, the responsibility is often passed on to them. I think the federal assistance grants coming up to 1% brings a $5 million increase to a council like ourselves, and that's when we start to get an operational budget that can address the issue that is our roads maintenance. So what I'm reading in there shows me that the focus is right from our administration as far as the priorities, and I would very much support another councillor attending, because I think it's important that we position ourselves well as one of the smaller under pressure regional councils. Our exposure to natural disasters is significant, given our edge to the Blue Mountains World Heritage Area. The fact that our urban landscapes sit in cup-shaped valleys which are suspect to very quick flooding and inundation. And also, whilst these things, maybe some acronyms just need some expansion, I understand what the LEMO role does, but for people who in the public may not, we find people like our director, Mr. Edgecombe, needing to step out and assist with the management of disasters. So when we have significant disasters, not only is the cost, those magic figures that we've got to pay up front, we also lose key staff as they assist in the management of these natural disasters. So there's many challenges for us. I appreciate what Councillor Coleman said in regard to the RFS funding. I don't think it's well understood by the general community how much both local government and themselves pay through their insurance. About 75% of the costs, the operating costs for New South Wales and the RFS comes from the insurance industry, and about 12 to 14% comes from us as local government. So we're taking it out of your rates and we're passing it on. The state government contributes about the same as we do. So we're a big player in that. It's a big step up to cover these costs for small regional councils. So I think the report's absolutely spot on the money, and I would certainly ask everyone to support the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor plus one going.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodso, you've already spoken.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Continue, thank you.
So hypothetically, if our motions were to be debated, they're very common, and there would be lots of other councils that would be making the same type of representations on behalf of their communities. I don't believe that we need 3 councillors. I think the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor attending a function, working together as a united team, is adequate. I believe they're good motions. I don't believe we should be going to $250 dinners. And I think, so I've got another amendment then, that we only send 2. The Mayor and the Deputy Mayor working hard in partnership with each other. And I guess this is $2,000 each, a gig, $2,110 if we attend a $250 dinner. I think those motions will be well represented across most local government areas, so I don't support that one at all.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anybody else wishing to speak? Oh, a seconder, thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce, sorry. Yes. Councillor Bryce?
I agree with Councillor Goodsell on the $250 dinner at this time when we're asking, rates and stuff is a bit ridiculous. And I don't think it's worth it. I definitely think, though, cutting it down to 2 people and presenting our emotions and hopefully getting them debated would be a good outcome for this conference.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman, right of reply? Oh, yes, sorry. That's the amendment, I'm sorry. So all those in favour of the amendment, thank you.
Yes, no.
Yeah. Your amendment? It's carried, thank you. Those against? Councillor McGee, Councillor Leslie, thank you.
So the amendment becomes the motion.
Yeah. So now the amendment becomes the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Doesn't say who it is, but. So is it Councillor Coleman and himself?
Yes, it was moved the Mayor and Deputy Mayor be the participants. Yeah.
$11.2 People and Services, thank you. Have somebody move this, please?
I'm happy to move it. I understand that Councillor Bryce would like to be on the Women's Advisory Committee, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm happy to move that the council consider nominating Councillor Bryce to be the other representative on the Women's Advisory Committee. Happy to move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Could I have a seconder, thank you. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor O'Connor, would you like to speak to that?
I moved it.
I'm very happy for Councillor Bryce to be on that.
Councillor Coleman?
Yes, please, if I could, Mayor Statham. Look, we attended the Women's Advisory Committee the other day. Pleased to have another councillor on board. Hopefully we can work cohesively with each other. You as the Mayor has the option to chair it, which is great. But what I was really pleased about was the number of those who attended the recent advisory committee. There were several women there. We had to actually get more chairs in for the number of women that turned up, so that's a great result. I would hope that the women continue to discuss issues during meetings, because they're every 3 months, so hopefully they continue discussing education and health and employment issues and other issues important to women across the local government area.
Councillor Goodsell?
I'm also happy to support Councillor Bryce's nomination, and she blew me away. I was chatting to her about this yesterday or the day before, and I'd just like to quickly, if she could give us a brief rundown on her relative experience in affairs of the women and what type of work she's done in what areas.
Councillor Bryce?
So my area, I started life as a fitter machinist apprentice at the Small Arms Factory, doing tool making in my 4th year in mechanical engineering. I finished my time at the factory as a mechanical engineer. I then went on to TAFE to teach fitting, machining, mechanical engineering between Lithgow, Bathurst, Mudgee and Orange, and occasionally Dubbo for 16 years. And in that time I was a Women's Education Strategy Officer, our job in the Western Institute that went from here to Broken Hill, supporting rural women, women out of work, Aboriginal women, women in crisis, and also a bit of youth at risk stuff as well. So after that I qualify, apparently. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Statham. What I was greatly impressed with was the number of women that actually returned back to the committee, that already served on the committee. What I also was greatly impressed with is new women joining the committee who had similar qualifications than others in the room, who also can contribute widely to the improvement of women within the local government area.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Item 11.2.1.
Happy to move. Happy to second it.
Sorry, who moved that? It was very quick. Councillor Goodwin, thank you. Was it Councillor Goodwin? Yes, Councillor Goodwin, and seconded.
Madam
Councillor
Mayor,
Goodsell.
Madam Mayor, I wonder as a matter of procedure if we could actually get the title of the subject we're doing before people rush in and move it. We know here in the room, but people listening and later on won't know which item we're talking about.
Yes, certainly, Councillor Leslie. The draft Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander protocols. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank Council for developing this very important policy, in particular Michael McGrath and his dedicated team for the work that they've put in to produce this document. Forms a framework in which Council will use when dealing with Aboriginal issues in a culturally appropriate way.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Goodsell.
Yes, I've also got to thank you to Mr McGrath. This has been a long time coming, and particularly maybe 18 months of hard work inspired by Bridie Zors and Bridget Thummer and their representations made to Council and Uluru Statement of the Heart last year. It is a vital first step in creating a set of agreed protocols to improve consultation and, more importantly, how to best engage with our First Nations community on matters that are important to them.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor McGee.
Yes, it's a good draft. It's just a draft though, and I would like to propose an amendment, just that it go to 60 days for the, just to allow more extensive consultation with all Aboriginal groups in the area who wish to comment and contribute, because it is a very important document.
Happy to second that.
Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Goodsell, are you happy to extend that in the commentary?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter?
Just a brief statement again, just to reiterate the councillor's comments. I think it's a terrific body of work, and I thank Councillor McGrath, and I thank the previous council, and particularly the councillors on there who've started this process in the last term. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce.
It's been a long time coming, this policy, and it's good that we've got a starting point, and hopefully that the community get back behind it for the 60 days and we get some submissions, some good quality submissions from the local community.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My vision here is to have all Aboriginal mobs in our local area come together in a coordinated forum to discuss local issues and have input into the future development in and around our local and sacred sites as a united front, as Aboriginals have done for thousands of years. This is the first step in this process.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. We'll go now to 11.2.1. Oh, sorry. All those in favour say aye. Against, unanimous. Thank you. 11.1.2.13, Model Code of Conduct Procedures. Thank you. Could I have somebody move this?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, second.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
It's fairly self-explanatory, and just that we take on the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
I agree with Councillor Bryce.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak to this? Councillor Leslie.
Yes, I have an amendment. But before I give the amendment, could I just suggest that the council staff review the model code of conduct that's actually on the website. There's large sections of it in red, which are the alternative versions, and it is confusing when you read it to know whether they're still in play or not. It just needs to be sorted out. But my amendment is to add a point 4, point 5 and a point 6 to the recommendation, and they are point 4, to ensure genuine independence from and for Code of Conduct reviewers, that no reviewer be appointed for consecutive investigations. Point 5, if the General Manager or a person acting on his/her behalf makes a Code of Conduct complaint against a councillor, then the councillor be informed of the complainant. And 6, should a complaint about conduct reviewers, which is the heading, be made to the General Manager, then the General Manager be required to inform the complainant about actions taken and outcomes determined. And in speaking to it, point 4,
Yes, could I have a seconder to this? Thank you.
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
thank you. For point 4, we had an unpleasant incident here at this council chamber when senior officers of the council belittled and insulted myself and a member of the community, known as the scumbag incident. A code of conduct was lodged, not by me, and the council appointed a reviewer. The council appointed reviewer dismissed the case. And although I was part of that incident when I was charged by the same individuals over public comments I made
Point of order,
in relation
Councillor Leslie.
Yes?
Mr General Manager.
Mayor, I just need to advise the council that the Code of Conduct is very prescriptive. It's a very tight, probably the tightest document in terms of the parameters within which council can move, and it particularly fetters the entitlement for a council or a council staff member to discuss matters, historical Code of Conduct matters. So
neither of those two individuals are.
Well, that doesn't. No, but Mayor, council is fettered, and it's most improper, in my view, through a proper interpretation of the Code of Conduct. To err, we're fettered, and we're not able to err and discuss aspects of codes of conduct. If we can, we're certainly fine to discuss the policy tonight.
Fair enough.
Individual circumstances.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I won't mention any more. I'll just leave it as stated. Point 5. If the General Manager or a person acting on his or her behalf makes a Code of Conduct complaint against a councillor, then the councillor be informed of the complaint. In this case, General Managers are not shy, vulnerable people who need to be protected. They are powerful officials with powers far exceeding that of the Mayor. This clause is needed to balance the power structure and prevent weaponising of codes of conduct. You only need to look at the event that occurred at Byron Shire Council to see how that power structure worked. And point 6, complaints about conduct reviewers. The clause reads, 8.4, the General Manager or their delegate must refer Code of Conduct complaints about conduct reviewers to the office for its consideration. Now, I had cause to send the General Manager an email on the 28th of October 2020 with a complaint about a Code of Conduct reviewer. I received no response from him, and I followed this up several months later and still no response. So I would like to see it in the Code of Conduct that such actions, that complaints about conduct reviews are acted on instead of just left loose. It's completely unacceptable.
Mr McGrath would like to speak to that. Thank you, Mr McGrath.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I haven't got Councillor Leslie's proposed amendment in front of me. However, I can point out that some of the changes that are proposed here are actually in the procedures for the Model Code of Conduct. So they're procedures for the administration of the Model Code of Conduct. So that's a different document. It's not the Code of Conduct document.
Thank you, Mr McGrath. Councillor Coleman.
I don't wish to speak to the amendment per se. I wish to speak to the report. Is that allowed?
I'll accept that, thank you.
Okay. So I just want to go back to the report. I'm happy to support the amendment.
Sorry, no, I'll do the amendment before you talk about the report. You're going to either speak now or else I'm putting the amendment.
I'll wait until afterwards and speak to the report.
Is there a motion to speak to the amendment? Councillor Leslie, the right of reply, and it's just the policy. Thank you. This is for the amendment.
I don't have a right of reply on an amendment, thank you.
All right, I'll put the amendment. Thank you. All those in favour of the amendment? Against? Lost. Thank you. So we'll return now to the motion. Thank you. Councillor Bryce, you moved this. Would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
I've already spoken to it.
Okay. Councillor Goodwin, or I'm going to actually, is there any more debate or not?
Yes, I would like to speak to the report.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
Please. I just want to come back to the report, and it states very clearly that councillors received training on the Code of Conduct on the 2nd of August and it was from the former Mayor of Leichhardt, I believe. Is that correct? Yep. Mayor Statham, you were there? Yeah? Okay. And I thought that the information given was very insightful. I was especially interested in the former Mayor's historical information regarding codes of conduct from previous councils and how things have changed. However, we ran short of time in that particular training, and I didn't get the opportunity to ask this question, so I'm hoping that perhaps it is allowed now, or staff can come back to me. The one question I was keen to ask, but unfortunately, as I said, time ran out, was what is the cost to the ratepayer regarding codes of conduct against a councillor? I was just very curious about the cost. I understand it's in the annual report, so I can get it from there, but I wanted to put it on record and wondering if we can have a answer now.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Mr McGrath, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Councillor Coleman, if you might just repeat that question.
I'm just interested in the cost. So the cost of a code of conduct, it comes in, there's a cost clearly to run it or send it off to whoever it needs to go. And I want to know how much it actually costs the ratepayer, because it's not our money. It's ratepayers' money that we use. So I want to know how much a code of conduct actually costs.
Through you, Mayor Statham, there's no fixed flat cost or cap. It varies from code of conduct complaint. So it really depends how much time and effort is required from the conduct reviewer if it reaches that point on the cost. So it's difficult to give you there could be an average cost, I suppose, but again, that will vary year to year. It depends how many codes of conduct complaints come in a given year.
So you don't have an average ballpark, Mr McGrath? Sorry, through you, Mayor? No? So I'll just wait for the end report then.
I think this is an operational issue. I'll rule out this, thank you. It's operational, it's got nothing to do with councillors, the cost of what it does to take to do it. Yes, I'm sure you knew that, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce, right of reply, thank you.
No, I'm right, thanks.
I'll put the motion, thank you. All those in favour, say aye. Unanimous, thank you. .3 Infrastructure Services Report, Proposed Road Naming DA 162/18, Martindale Place, Portland. Have a mover, thank you. Councillor McGee.
I'll second.
I think Councillor Bryce might have had her. Oh, Councillor O'Connor, I knew it was up there somewhere. Councillor O'Connor, thank you. Councillor McGee.
Yes, a good subdivision going in, and I think it's very appropriate that a naming of the place, as Martindale was the original property that this is all based on. So it's very appropriate, and a tremendous amount of work's gone in there. It's really looking good, and a fantastic thing for the entire LGA.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor O'Connor.
Yep, I agree with Councillor McGee. It's a good subdivision and they should be able to name it what they name it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anybody else wishing to speak on the matter? Right reply, Councillor McGee.
Sorry, I'll just make a very brief comment. I'm sorry I'm digging into the details, but I thank Councillor McGee for the background to the naming. I actually am a fan of when we keep local history reference points, so that's the only point I'll make there.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Right of reply, Councillor McGee.
No, it's all good.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 11.3.2, Service New South Wales Agreement, Business Support Partnership.
I'll move this one.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a second to thank you. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bryce.
This is a good partnership with Service New South Wales, and so happy to just go with the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor O'Connor.
Same as Councillor Bryce. It's a very good incentive, so happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anybody else wish?
Mayor Statham, I just have a question. I have no problems with the recommendation and the report's great. And yes, I agree we need to provide support to new and existing businesses. I just want to understand what's the difference between providing bespoke support and just providing support. What's the difference? I just was curious. I found that word very curious.
Mr Edgecombe can respond to that, Councillor Coleman. Thank you.
Through Nathan. Bespoke, a different word could be unique. It just means information and services that are targeted toward the business that we're speaking to, or that we refer to Services New South Wales, not generic information that could be provided to anybody. It's services tailored to the business.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. Anybody else wishing to speak to this? Councillor Bryce, right of reply.
I'm right, thanks.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Item 11.4.1, Energy from Waste, West Lithgow Precinct.
Happy to move.
Happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Coleman.
Yes.
Oh, you're very much alike. Sorry. Apologies. Councillor Bryce. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Coleman. Thank you. Sorry, my apologies.
Speaking to the report, in the report it states that the Environment Protection Agency clarified that there was a technical drafting error that occurred during the development of the Lithgow map. However, as stated in the report, at the time of the written report it hadn't yet been corrected. I have a question. Has that been corrected? Have we received advice on that yet? That's part of, I just have that question.
Mr Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, it hasn't been corrected yet. We've had correspondence back and forth with the EPA and their officers. They are working on getting that fixed up, though, so it goes back to the original mapping.
So will we receive, sorry, Mayor Statham, I apologise. Will we receive advice on that?
Yes, we will do.
Okay, thank you, that's great. Look, it really disappoints me that potentially this might have been a policy on the run and the consultation probably wasn't the best it should have been. However, I do note that due to community upset, and they were quite upset regarding this issue, that Energy Australia has withdrew the development application, so congratulations to them.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Goodsell? Or was Councillor Bryce? I'm sorry.
I read the EPA report on this and looked at all the parameters and how they're still working on it, but they are tightening all the air quality and the monitoring on this to 24 hours. There was quite a lot of work done on that, and it was good to see that if it does go ahead, even if it doesn't go ahead in our area, it goes ahead anywhere in this state, it will go well. The EPA.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Bryce? Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this?
Yes, I'd like to make some comments, if I may. Lithgow councillors were asked, for a response to 4 specific questions, and they're the ones in the dot points in the middle of page 20. So the first one, notice advising Lithgow Council. Well, that was not provided. What consultation was undertaken by the government? None. The only comment I can find about public consultation is the public consultation and good neighbour principle in the attachments, which deals specifically with the proponents and the operators. It's not a government consultation at all. So the government has undertaken none. The third dot point, what was council's response to the government? Well, as far as I can see, it was limited to the size of the area and an attempt to fix the government's incompetence. But the council's energy from waste submission, and I thank Mr Trapp for sending it out, deals almost entirely with the council's attempt to include the old Wallerawang power station in the precinct, and the government screwed you on that. So that's not going to happen. It makes no comment about the expansion of the precinct at all. And the fourth dot point, the council's action in advising the citizens of Lithgow, and particularly those citizens and businesses in the new expanded area, well, outside of this particular urgent motion put forward by me, there was none.
Excuse me, Councillor Leslie, refrain from speaking until I check the point of order. Thank you. Councillor Goodsell.
So I understood this, the 4 dot points were in relation to an expansion of the area, and it's been confirmed that there is no expansion of the area, so the question's really a non-existent, that there's no advice to council because there was no expansion.
I'll take that as a point of order, Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Goodsell.
Well, that's complete nonsense because there wasn't expansion.
Councillor Leslie, I have taken it as a point of order.
Oh,
that's
okay,
the final.
Fine. I'll add that to the list of forbidden topics. Thank you.
No worries whatsoever.
Point of order, please.
It's okay, Councillor Bryce. Thank you. Any other debate? Thank you. Councillor Coleman, right of reply?
No, I'm happy for the motion to be put.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Leslie was against. The others were for the motion. Thank you. Point 5, Finance and Assets Report. Thank you. Could I have somebody please move the investment report for July 2022? Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Have a seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Marnie.
Just as always, I thank the staff for the detailed report. I know for some reason I'm flashing. Oh, there we go. I know there's concern in the community that our financial reports aren't visible to the public, so I think it's important that what you're putting here is quite valuable to that conversation. I note at the bottom paragraph on page 22, there's a number of significant works that are occurring in the LGA, and I think that's another issue for us as a council is building that visibility of those major works, and there's some very important works going on there at the Portland Range Road intersection, Wallerawang SPS, the sewer pumping station, the Portland Water Main Renewal, the Resource Recovery Centre, the Glenn Davis Bridges, and other flood damage emergency works. These sort of things that are happening, it's important that can be seen in the community as well. I personally also like to thank, although we haven't delved as deep as I perhaps would like to into the whole asset management and service planning process, but I'm becoming increasingly optimistic about the council's thinking around the entire financial framework. particularly with long-term assets that are in a failed or failing state. The fact that we are looking at a systematic asset management system, that is going to give us the costs in front of us, that we can start making well-informed decisions and prioritisation of these works. So I think this report, although it can be as dry as for a lot of people, it's a very important report that comes through the council. So I thank the staff for the work they've done on it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Goodwin?
Nothing from me.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak to this? Councillor McGee?
Yeah, great report. Very well written report. But the truck, 184k, was it I'd just like to ask through you, Mayor Statham, was it a bogey tipper, prime mover? What was it?
Mr Edgecombe?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. It was just a standard HR tipper.
Bogey tipper. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. Thank you, Councillor McGee. No dissent. I'll put the motion. Councillor Marnie, would you like right of reply? I'm happy to give that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. 11.6 Policies and Governance, Encroachment Management Policy. Can I please have somebody move this?
Please.
Councillor Marnie?
Happy to second.
That was Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Marnie, would you like to speak to that?
I'll just speak briefly. Again, it's good to see some of the work that's going on in the background. It's not always visible to the council, but it's an important policy issue. I would like to think, I hope this is possible, that we get an information session on this matter. I'm particularly interested in the outcomes surrounding retrospectively authorising encroachments onto public land and also transfer of ownership. I realise that there's many locations within, if we just look at the Lithgow Valley, where there's very early mining leases and there's properties that have encroached into public roads and all sorts of places. I would like a little bit of further information on that. The other thing that I would applaud the staff, that the policy is underpinned by a procedural fairness approach, where we're actually looking for voluntary compliance and working with residents to resolve matters. I appreciate we haven't gone straight to the order and the notice as our tool, and that we're going to try and work with communities that have inadvertently found themselves in this position. So I thank the staff for their work on that one as well.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Goodsell? No? Any dissent on this?
I have a question, if I may.
Councillor Leslie?
I understand that in Lithgow, with many houses being built before the 1919 Local Government Act, that it's pretty common for houses to encroach on their neighbours. Now, I appreciate that's not part of this policy, neighbours to neighbours, but are there many instances of this actually happening onto council land? I mean, is it a widespread matter, or is it just some one-offs?
Thank you, Councillor
Wondering just
Leslie.
how many people might be interested.
No, thank you, Councillor Leslie. Mr Gurney will take that on notice and get back to you with the answer. Thank you. Unless Mr Gurney would like
all ballpark figure. I mean, like tens or hundreds. I mean,
I'd have to take that.
just say it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll take that question on notice. I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Leslie, you voting? Yes. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Ms Statham, can I just say something? I've forgotten to declare an interest in the Crime Prevention Committee. I attended that meeting as a police officer, not as a councillor. So it'll be non-significant, non-pecuniary, and I won't be voting.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Council committee reports now. 12.1, Crime Prevention Committee minutes, thank you. Could I have somebody move there, correct?
I'll move it. I was there.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Have a seconder, thank you.
Sure.
Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Look, I want to bring the community and the council's attention to item 3, the discussion on homelessness within Lithgow. Look, it truly saddens me that at the Crime Prevention Committee we're addressing homeless. However, it needed to be discussed because being homeless isn't actually a crime. But it was discussed, and I want to bring the community and the council's attention to the minutes because I'm often questioned about the gentleman in Cook Street Plaza. Doesn't matter where I am, we're questioned. So in the minutes, and I want to thank Councillor Goodwin who was there as a police officer and gave us great detail in regards to this issue. And in the minutes it states that the police have been in regular touch with a number of local homeless people as well as local business owners regarding this issue. However, the police have limited powers to move people on unless they're committing an offence. Because I get the question asked all the time, why are they being moved on? So I think it's important that we make that clear to the community why. There's also states in the minutes that the gentleman in Cook Street Plaza, we've followed him up and he has chosen to live there. Like, people don't understand that that's his choice. So I wanted to bring the community to the fact that that gentleman, as sad as it may be, and we'd hope that he would take on accommodation, is choosing to live there. And that's in the minutes. I just wanted to bring the community's attention to that because I don't know about any other councillor, but even at the event on Saturday, I was questioned again about that gentleman.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Goodwin, you might like to make a statement there without voting, if that's okay?
Yeah, I just want to say that I also sit on, or have sat on as a police officer, a committee with council trying to address these issues as well. And things are underway with other community groups as well. So we're trying to do it as a whole body rather than just either the council or the police moving forward on this. We're doing it as a community rather than just one.
Yes, I've been on that committee too, and I'm also on the Crime Prevention Committee, and it certainly has been discussed. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce?
It's, again, on the homelessness, it's a sad fact of modern living that we have homelessness. I was up in Blackheath and they have somebody living in the gazebo there in the park as well. It is sad, but just part of modern living with everything else that's going on around in the world.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Leslie? Oh, sorry, Councillor O'Connor? Did you have your hand up? No, Councillor Leslie, thank you.
Yes, I also was there, and I note that the minutes state that Councillor Goodwin was there, and I would suggest that they be amended to be Councillor Goodwin with his police title, rather than it's a minor matter. But I'd like to just take up what Councillor Coleman said about Councillor Goodwin at the meeting. His presence there and his comments there were very, very effective. Were very detailed. They were very sympathetic, and they were very understanding. It was his comments and statements at the meeting were very supportive, and it certainly encouraged and it made that meeting very, very valuable to me. I thought it was something that was well worthwhile, and I'd like to thank him for his contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Coleman.
I'd like to...
Councillor Marnie. Could you please, Councillor Marnie, in future, as I've asked you before, please put your hand up before I go to put the motion or go to right of reply.
That's fine. Okay, it's concerning for me that the only place we can find a home for this subject is the Crime Prevention Committee. It's part of a layered housing challenge that we have in our city that we need to be addressing. And it's homelessness, it's hidden homelessness where people are in cars, it's hidden homelessness where people are sleeping on people's couches. I still have some difficulty understanding why we voted against an information session on the local housing strategy, but we have to find a home for this issue and we have to attend to this issue, not piecemeal and trying to find a best fit location for it. So I hope at some stage we can see as a council that there's an importance of talking about securing housing for lots of people in different sectors of our community. First home buyers, homeless people, transition, emergency housing. And I know staff are working towards that and I appreciate that. But I think it has to be a greater focus on us not trying to fit it into a committee where it doesn't belong. So that's all.
Mr General Manager will respond to that. Thank you.
Just to be clear for the councillors and the public that are viewing, the minutes record that the subject was discussed at this Crime Prevention Committee, not that we characterise homelessness as being a criminal issue. I guess it really points to the intersections and the complexity of homelessness. And certainly I know Mr McGrath has briefed the council previously and will do again on what we're doing for a multi-sectoral approach across the city to address homelessness. It doesn't have a place in this committee, but it was discussed. Over here is much more significant body of work occurring.
And I don't normally speak because I chair the meeting, but I can say as late as last Friday week I spoke to a local policeman that was attending, talking to this gentleman near the post office, and there has been many meetings with Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Chris Samet, and it's not that nobody cares. We've offered him accommodation now twice and he has refused to take it. Thank you. I'll put the Councillor Coleman, would you like right of reply?
Yes, look, thank you, Mayor Statham, for making those comments. I think it's really important. As I said previously, I'm often asked about that gentleman, so I'm glad that you made that statement because the community needs to know that we're doing what we can within our power. And no, the Crime Prevention Committee isn't a home for homelessness. Sorry, it sounds like a bit of a pun, but the discussion had to be had, and I hope that we can help whoever is in that situation.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. 12.2 Community Development Committee Minutes of the 12th of July 2022. Could I have somebody move that? Thank you.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
Happy a second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce?
I'm happy with the report, but I thought this report was already presented last meeting. Obviously, I've missed that. You didn't? Okay. All right. Okay, no worries. I'm happy with the report.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman?
I have nothing further to add.
Is there any dissent on this? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Finance Committee meetings, minutes, the 20th of July 2022. Can I have somebody please?
Happy to move that.
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodsell.
I know nothing to say. This was from the prior month. They didn't come to last month's meeting, but many items out of the Finance Committee meeting did come to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce.
Same as Councillor Goodsell. The good thing about the Finance Committee that we have an opportunity to ask questions to Mr Gurney and get responses in a much more relaxed and atmosphere, rather than the tight council meeting, and it's been very useful going to the committee meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against? Right of reply, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. The TALC Committee meeting minutes of the 11th of August 2022. Could I have somebody please move we accept those minutes?
I'm happy to move that.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Have a seconder, thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Leslie, would you like to speak to that?
No, but I'm happy to answer questions or refer them to Mr Edgecombe.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Coleman?
No, I don't have any further to add, but that I actually attended this meeting as a guest, and I found it quite fascinating and it was very well ran. It was chaired beautifully, and we were in and out in no time flat, and I found it very educational.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. And, Councillor Leslie, you're just waiting if anybody wishes to ask Councillor Leslie a question. Anybody else wishing to speak to this?
Just quickly, Councillor Leslie, the meeting was the 11th of August, but the previous meeting was cancelled and this one was rescheduled, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Because there was no council representation, is that correct?
No, it was not
that was
because
on
of
the
council
email we got.
representation. It was deferred because of lack of agenda items.
Okay, thank you.
I actually misunderstood that. I thought it was because there was no quorum.
I think the email wasn't clear why.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bryce. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. 12.5, Environmental Advisory Committee meeting.
I move this.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a second to thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce, would you like to speak to that?
It was a very good meeting, I thought. We had a good representation. It was mainly on the Garden Stones Conservation Area and our response, which came to council last time, and I thought it was pretty good.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie.
Just one matter arising, if we are able to resolve the remaining membership on that committee. In regard specifically, Tidy Towns is one of those that we need to address.
Sorry, is that a question, Councillor Marnie? I wasn't sure then.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I should have put it through you, Mayor.
Mr McGrath? Mr McGrath would be able to answer that for you, Councillor Marnie.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, no, it hasn't been resolved as yet.
Thank you, Mr McGrath. Anybody else wishing to speak on this? If there's no dissent, I'll put the motion. Would like right of reply? Certainly, Councillor Bryce.
The only thing I would like to note is that it would be nice, most of the people representation is from sort of Newlands Plateau to Hartley, sort of that area, including the conservation. It would be nice to see a far more diverse group, Walgam Valley, Cabity Valley, those sort of, and the areas out that way, even Megalong and stuff like that. That's just my only point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Leslie? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. Is there any business of great urgency this evening? Councillor Coleman?
I don't know whether this is urgent, Mayor, but I'll raise it anyway, and then you can rule me out if you wish. I attended the local hockey association annual general meeting last week. I would have brought it as a notice of motion, but I didn't have the opportunity. And they mentioned the difficulties they're having in regards to repairs regarding a roof. I'm wondering if we can get some update on that, because they were quite concerned about that issue, because they're hoping to put in.
Councillor Coleman, it's been taken care of.
So if we, okay, let me just
it's not
say.
a mention of great urgency. It is, but I'm not going to accept that, because at the moment, Mr Edgecombe will give you an update on that.
Okay, so is he going to give a verbal one or a written one?
No, verbal.
Verbal, okay, great, thanks.
Written,
so you'll do a written, okay.
Yes.
The reason I mentioned, if I could just say, is that they're hoping to apply for the state championship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
Madam Mayor, I have an urgency motion, if I may.
Certainly.
Mine is that Lithgow Council, just waiting. Apparently never mind, I'll do it without the camera. That Lithgow Council urgently contact Upper Macquarie County Council to investigate complaints that African lovegrass is spreading along council roads into Oberon. Now, it might sound familiar. I moved this exact same motion on the 24th of June. And the response was that, I'll read the minutes of that council meeting. Councillor Leslie raised the matter of concerns about Lithgow Council's practice of slashing roadsides instead of spraying where there is African lovegrass. This was raised at Upper Macquarie County Council meeting on Friday last week, that's the 24th of June. Councillor Leslie requested a report be brought back addressing this matter. The Mayor did not declare the matter to be urgent, however the Mayor requested staff to investigate this and contact UMCC to seek clarification. Well, as far as I'm aware, we at the Upper Macquarie County Council meeting only 10 days ago, I asked, and you can check from the video, whether that had happened, and the answer was from the 3 senior members of the County Council that they'd had no contact from Lithgow Council. I think now the matter is urgent.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie, for bringing that to our attention. The matter will be dealt with by staff as soon as possible. Thank you.
You're declaring the matter not to be a matter of urgency then?
No, I'm going to accept it as a matter of urgency because I think it is a matter of urgency now that we move forward with that.
In that case, I will move the motion that Lithgow Council urgently contact Upper Macquarie County Council to investigate complaints that African lovegrass is spreading along council roads into Oberon.
Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I don't wish to have the debate, but if anybody wishes to debate it, I'm very happy to, but I'm happy to accept that as a matter of great urgency. Is there any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. That's the end of the meeting this evening. Thank you. I thank you, Public Gallery and the media, for attending the meeting this evening, and thank councillors and councillor staff. Thank you.
Rating review.
Councillors, before you leave tonight, please, could you just